I've been going through the latest Cotality property report and some really interesting facts. If you're off your work and you're wondering, is now a terrible time to buy? This report actually says something very different to that. It's much calmer than the headlines lead you to suggest. Now, what we're going to just go through here. The big picture is that property prices are still rising across Australia, but the market is slow, uneven, and much more about affordability than hype. People are looking at the markets where there's a lot more price elasticity, where they can actually get in and there's affordability. One of the core points is that prices are still rising, but slowly, if you're looking across the market generally. The national home values rose by 0.8% in January. The prices are up 9.4% across the country. What we're seeing here is that Sydney and Melbourne are relatively flat. They're not doing too much. 0.1% price increases over January, but the mid-sized markets are moving a lot quicker. Let's go here month on month. Brisbane moved by 1.6%, Adelaide 1.2%, Perth 2%, Darwin 1.5%. For the annual numbers, the picture is huge. Now, normally you'd look at even 5, 6, or 7% price growth, and that's very good. But when you compare it to Brisbane 15%, Perth 18.5%, and Darwin 19%, there is obviously a two-tier market at the moment. Some of the mid-sized markets are moving very, very strong, whereas the bigger cities of Sydney and Melbourne are a lot more moderate. Though, if you have a look at the math, and the average size or average property price of, say, Sydney is $1 million these days, times that by times that by 1.07, that's 70k in that person's pocket that bought something a year ago. And just as a bit of anecdotal evidence, the customers that we're working with over the past 12 months, we've been doing a lot of property reports. Some of them are seeing price growth up to $200,000 or $300,000. So this is the average numbers or median prices rather than what's happening everywhere. Now, one of the other core points is affordability is still a real pressure. Housing is the least affordable it's ever been. Okay, borrowing is under pressure, so obviously people's incomes are not growing as quickly as property prices are, and we're also seeing some changes to the laws. Let's go over here. This is some of the detailed stuff. There is currently a more cautious credit environment. So here we can see some of the details might be a bit small. I'll send you this report, you can have a look for yourself. But APRA recently, as of 3 days ago, set some new limits for debt to income ratios, basically limiting how much the bank will allow you to borrow based on your income. So making it harder for more people to get into the market. Now, albeit most of the people that are pushing the higher debt to income ratios are investors, so it is taking some of the heat of that part of the market. The cost of living and possible rate increases is also tightening pressure as well. So the real challenge right now isn't about finding homes, it's about passing bank serviceability while still living your life. And this is a point that really sticks out to me because we have hundreds of conversations, and that's one thing that I've noticed many of our customers are doing is they're spending a little bit of extra time to consider not just how much they can borrow, but how much they can afford and what the repayments are actually going to be today and tomorrow. Now, fortunately, there's one point here which we have mentioned in the past, that the banks will assess your rate 3 percentage points higher. This is that serviceability buffer. Then what's the advertised rate? So they're thinking well into the future and seeing if you can afford it. Another core point is for first home buyers. They're still very active. Most of the competition is at the lower end of the market where there's a lot more affordability. So the cheaper markets and within the bigger markets where it is quite expensive, it is the cheapest stock that is growing the fastest. So for instance, in Sydney, we're seeing a lot more price growth in the apartments, townhouses. So the most affordable parts of the markets are growing faster than the more expensive one, and first home buyers are very, very active. Currently, about 40% of all our internal applications are first home buyers, and they're all stepping into the market because of the different government schemes, the huge stamp duty concessions, the LMI waivers. It's a good time to get in if you're a first home buyer. Now, we want to talk about rental pressure. It is actually pushing people to buy. As you can see here, this is the annual change in rents in houses. We're still seeing a lot of rental growth in the housing market and also in the unit market. Now, rental vacancies came up to 1.7% nationally. This is from a record low of 1.5, but still well below the national average of 2.5%. Now, to put that into context, if you've got a year is 52 weeks, and if you do it at 2%, that's 1 week a year that's vacant. So it's a very tight rental market. Rental vacancies are still extremely low, and rents have risen over 40% over the last 5 years. So a lot of people are, 40%. A lot of people are looking at that and saying, well, the margin between renting and buying my own home is really quite low. It's probably another reason why we're seeing so many first home buyers step into the market. This actually leads me to our next point. The average age, I just want to bring this up, the average age of the first home buyer in Australia is between 34 and 36 years old. This has risen significantly since all of our parents were buying properties. And the reason why I want to bring this up is because we talk to a lot of customers and they're feeling like, as first home buyers, the market's moving without them, that they're falling behind some magical number. But realistically, people in their 30s and some even in their early 40s are just getting into the market now. The average time that it takes for an Australian to save up their deposit typically takes 5.6 years to 6.5 years in some regions as well, particularly the high price markets. Now, largely, as we're going through this report, there's some key things that stand out to me that Totality is not expecting any major downturns. Growth is likely to slow, but not necessarily reverse over the next 12 months. And this is largely due to a few competing things. Very, very low stock at the moment. If we pull the report here, just here, as Tim says, Tim Lawless, the ongoing capital gains reflect persistently low inventory in the face of above average housing demands. Totality estimates the number of houses advertised for sale was 19% below the same levels this time last year and 25% below 5-year averages. So we're seeing persistently low levels of stock and still quite a lot of pressure, people wanting to buy properties, and this is why we're still seeing this price growth. So just to summarize it all, what this report is really telling us is that rushing isn't the move, clarity is. Now, if you're looking to get into the property market, what you need to understand are your numbers, how much you can afford, and then get a real sense of what your timing is going to look like. You don't need to rush in. For the people that are already out there shopping, we've got lots of people that have got pre-approvals out there shopping for property. And after your first 3 months, maybe they're going into the second 3 months of shopping, that frustration's getting there. You don't need to feel the frustration is warranted, but you can also slow down and realize that there is persistently low stock, and this is the same issue that everybody's facing. Anyways, happy hunting and good luck.